All right, welcome back, guys. You are still tuned in to Fantastic Fridays, and we're still your hosts. Yes, we are. We're still your hosts, Kimmie, Kim, and Mr. Fresh Concepts. All right, so as we mentioned earlier, that we will be discussing how can we improve road safety in Jamaica. And this is something that I personally am passionate about because I see all the foolishness will go on the road. And yes, I said foolishness because half of it not necessary. If anything, all of it not necessary, right?
Yeah.
So especially after this Christmas season that we had, all the accidents, as I was talking about earlier, is that I was traveling from Corville up Boulevard one day and every other stoplight had broken glass, every other one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found that ridiculous. And then when you see people are bad drive people and taking certain chances and stuff, I felt like this was a discussion that we needed to have. So that's the discussion we're going to have today. And we have with us the acting director of the Road Safety Unit, Mrs. Deidrie Hudson-Sinclair. Mrs. Hudson-Sinclair, are you hearing me?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Good evening, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your Friday evening to talk with us. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's get into it. What we want to know first, because I know many of us may hear Road Safety Unit, and we're probably not very familiar with it. So can you let us know what is the Road Safety Unit and what does the Road Safety Unit do?
Well, the Road Safety Unit is a part of the Island Traffic Authority that's within the Ministry of Transport and Mining.
Okay. And what does the Road Safety Unit do?
Okay, so we are an organization that promotes and fosters a safe traffic environment through collecting data, carrying out road safety audits, and we use our data to inform policy, enforcement, and legislation.
Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. And on that note, since you do research and all of that, I want to know, can you share some statistics regarding road accidents and fatalities that have occurred over the past 2 years, like probably 2020, 2021? Can you share some information there?
Well, last year we had 484 deaths.
Wow.
And unfortunately, this is a 12% increase from last year. Well, I should say 2020. And, it's rather unfortunate that, we had to lose all these souls. And the other major impact for us in fatality is motorcycles. And the death of motorcycles, we lost 164 motorcycles on the nation's roads, and they really attributed to 34% of fatalities island-wide. So they were our largest group, and that is followed by pedestrians and then private motor vehicle drivers. And they represent 20% and 19% respectively. So, it's a rather unfortunate situation we find ourselves in when we thought that COVID might have, stemmed some of the level of fatalities that we had observed in the previous years from 2018, 2019, and to 2020 early part. But that did not happen, and we had quite a lot of crashes during curfew hours as well. So it really speaks to the state of indiscipline in our country. And it also speaks to different factors like our road network that isn't necessarily to the standard with which we like it. So for instance, you said the boulevard. When we focus on Kingston and St. Andrew, we have a couple of bad spots. And we realize what we call bad spots are where we have a lot of crashes, fatalities, and serious crashes that happen frequently. And Washington Boulevard is one of those areas, including Old Hope Road, the various intersections along Old Hope Road, and Knutsford Boulevard, Hagley Park. So we realized that a lot of these crashes are not only attributed to excessive speeding, but inattention, and that is coming up a lot on our radar. Inattention means that they're sometimes they're watching TV in their vehicles. They have a television set. It's not a set, but they can access it through their infotainment. And also you have issues with cell phone. So these are the new challenges we face in road safety as the technology, progresses.
Oh, wow. But you sort of answered my next question right there and then, because I was going to ask, according to the data that you've collected, what were the most reasons or most common causes for accidents and road fatalities? But you highlight, well, the phone was not something new to me, because we see that every day, especially on social media. Mm-hmm. You see it. And guys, we really need to do something about that. We need to focus on the road. I'm sure when we were all learning how to drive, them tell you if you focus on the road.
Yeah, but I think Mrs. Hudson-Sinclair points out, that I think she says what can
you repeat the word? Inattentive. Okay, yeah.
So basically, you're not paying attention, people. Mm-hmm. Why are you driving then, guys? If you want to watch TV, stay at home and watch TV.
Yeah, that one was a bit new to me when she said the TV thing, but I've seen it.
In some of the taxis, they have them at the back, and in some of the more modern cars, that display screen that you have in your front console can also switch to a TV, and some person set it up that way. But another issue that we have is excessive speeding, and that mainly happens out on our nice flat 4-lane roads, Marcus Garvey Drive, Spanish Town, where a lot of the persons think that, because it's a straight road and it's clear, I should speed. And it's unfortunate that certain roadways like Washington Boulevard has, shops, supermarkets, intersections where people are traversing across the lanes. And we have a lot of pedestrian fatalities out there. We have a lot of, injuries when it comes to pedal cyclists as well. So other vulnerable road users, so pedestrians, motorcyclists, and pillion and pedal cyclists often find themselves in these situations where they're trying to maneuver these large 4-way roadways, and it's very difficult for them to navigate.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know, it always heavies my heart to hear these things.
We say we don't have the good roads, but then the good roads that we do have, we're speeding on them. We're doing all sort of things on them, and we're creating these accidents. So we can't even benefit from the good roads because we're not feeling safe on these roads either. Mm-hmm. So we definitely need to find a way to get into the hearts and minds of these people to say, listen me, why can we just slow down and get to where we're going safely? Yeah?
Yeah. And
yes, so one of the keys to that is defensive driving. And what a defensive driver does is look out for the areas that there can be hazards or conflict with other road users. So a defensive driver will drive within the speed limit, but not only drive within the speed limit, but recognize the roadway he's driving on. So let's say, for instance, Hope Road. Coming down Hope Road, or coming into Ligani, you recognize that there are shops, there's a school down the road, there is a doctor's office. There are so many concealed entrances. Even though it may be a 50, you really want to say, okay, maybe I can slow down here because somebody might just step into the roadway. And then you're sharing the roadway with pedal cyclists. Maybe you don't want to go too close or slow down because you don't know he's going to turn. So we're going to anticipate persons not using the road wisely or carefully, and then you basically negotiate your driving skills. You say, all right, let me slow down, let me pay attention to this because this might happen. And it can actually apply to pedestrians. Pedestrians need to recognize that you can't immediately step into the roadway and a car stops. The driver has to see you, so there's a perception reaction time. Then he has to apply his brakes, and depending on the speed that he's going at, it's going to take some time. So we often ask pedestrians, I know sometimes in the middle of the road, not in the middle of the road, but you're at the sidewalk and you want to cross, but you're not getting the attention you need. Hold up your hand. Let the driver recognize that you intend to cross and wait for all vehicles to stop. on either side of the roadway and then cross. And a lot of them often, especially elderly, are trying to get across. They've been waiting a long time and, they just step out, they take a chance or run across. And unfortunately, it doesn't always end well.
Oh.
Yeah, that's actually a very common thing. Very, very common thing. And then also sometimes when they see it happening, like in the midst of it now, they, instead of trying to get out of the way, they panic and they just stay, I've seen that happen a lot.
Yeah, but that's the thing as well, Kim. Those situations is basically not good for anyone.
For anybody.
Because if you're already trying to quickly run across the road and you find vehicles are coming at you, if you stop, you're not safe.
If you continue running,
pick aside, the driver is probably. That's why it's best to just wait until the road is clear. So it's gonna be, it's a test of our patience. But trust me, it is not worth your life to rush across the road and at a chance of being hit. If the pedestrian crossing is a few steps away, go ahead and make your way down there. Go towards the stoplight. Try and go to an area where you know that you are able to tell when the traffic is at a standstill, so you know that, okay, I have my chance to cross. And as we hear, please ensure that you give a signal to the drivers.
Yeah,
let them know that
acknowledgement. Make them acknowledge that.
Before you're jumping out into the road.
And on that note, Mrs. Hudson-Sinclair, I know when we spoke earlier, you were talking about some initiatives that the Road Safety Unit is, trying to engage in to help to fix these problems that we clearly have. Do you mind sharing some of those with us, like with what you can share?
Okay, sorry for me. Sorry about that.
That's quite okay.
It's a Friday night and I'm at home, so my apologies.
That is fine. Say hi for us.
Yes. So we have road safety happening at home there.
Yes, of course. Stay home.
Vehicles crossing paths.
Can I tell you?
With the initiatives, are you able to share some initiatives that the Road Safety Unit is, trying to engage in to help to fix these problems?
You said something earlier about, you see all the foolishness. Well, the Road Safety Unit launched a campaign last year called Stop the Foolishness, which was geared towards identifying the bad behavior of motorists and pedestrians and actually providing them with solutions based on defensive behavior in terms of guiding them to avoid road hazards. So we actually launched that in June of last year, and we're continuing the campaign. So it's in TV and social media. And we just want to it took a change for us because we had often been out on the road engaging people personally, but because of COVID, we had to change and we had to rely more on social media and, limit the amount of interpersonal interactions we had with, the citizens of Jamaica. So we are going on TV. We're trying to engage persons through social media. We actually had some road safety, what we call it, lunch talks. We're invited the persons from media and citizenry to talk about the issues that they were facing. So, it was a good campaign and we're going to continue it. And, we will see how best we can engage with the population as we are limited to how much we can interact face to face. Our schools program was one of the other things that we did where we went into schools. Now that schools have reopened, we are starting to go back into schools to engage with students at the primary school level and the high school level. But one of the things that we really were proud of was being a part of the National Road Safety Council. And we are the council recognizing that we were having issues with motorcycle crashes. We actually started going into communities where we realized there was a high population of motorcyclists and we were having a high frequency of crashes and fatalities. We started to engage them in training. And that was one of the major issues. We realized that for the last 2 years that motorcycles would ride on their learners. So we had these young men and women who were totally not privy to any road code, but they would go and get a learners and they were riding on the learner's license. So we wanted to go in and train them, ensure that they actually register for learners, re-register. And when we re-register with the Island Traffic Authority, no, anybody who is going to get a provisional or learner's license will have to take a road code test, and they will have to pass the test before they get a learner's. And that we're doing with these motorcyclists, also offering them training from the police in terms of getting them engaged and showing them how to ride properly. Because a lot of these persons that you see, they'll probably balance very well on a motorcycle. They can, put it into gear and they can go, but in certain areas, in terms of managing curves at different speeds, they wouldn't necessarily be able to do so or privy to that information to help them manage. So we had the police from the public safety enforcement or traffic enforcement branch that came in and helped those young men. And, we had persons from the ministry, Island Traffic Authority, the police, JGRA, and we actually provided helmets for them as well. So, that was a real program we were part to be a part of. However, because of COVID, a lot of those trainings had to stop. But we are going to re-engage through traditional media, through social media, and continue to give the public all the information they need.
Okay, I love that. And those initiatives actually sound like, I think those were really good moves.
Yeah, we just want to get to the people. And as she said, it's a bit tricky now, seeing that we're not out there.
The whole face-to-face thing.
But we need to, still get the message out there.
And what I liked is that, because most persons, when you talk about motorcyclists, is more of a bashing thing, and you wish they didn't ride bikes. Mm-hmm. They didn't do it from a perspective of, okay, don't ride bikes. Mm-hmm. It was just like, ride responsibly, know what you're doing. Don't just get up and think, okay, you can balance on the bike. You know what you're doing.
Yeah,
so they encourage, they provide safety.
Safety options.
Attire, and helmets and stuff. So I love that initiative, that you weren't really bashing it and say don't do it. Mm-hmm. It's just do it responsibly, do it wisely, know what you're doing before you do it, type of thing,
And as you said previously, Kim, persons are going out there really and truly just to go about their business. It's not necessarily that we're really going out there to create the havoc and cause accidents. Mm-hmm. But you guys need to be safe. Mm-hmm. You also need to be considerate.
Yes.
Because that is where it comes in, where you start the defensive technique, because you have to prepare yourself for someone out there who might be not aware of where they're walking. You have to be prepared in case somebody accidentally steps out. Mm-hmm. You have to be driving cautiously. If you're walking, you have to be looking out for vehicles. Probably they don't see the light has changed, so you don't just jump out into the road as the pedestrian sign switches to go. Mm-hmm. You still have to keep your eye out and be in a defensive manner. Wait until you have the clear. Yeah.
And that's something my dad has always said. I always drive for you and everybody else.
Yeah, that's it.
Since he mentioned those things, Mrs. Hudson-Sinclair, could you then, because Lionel started us off already, do you have any road safety advice for, and I'm going to separate them. Firstly, do you have some advice for pedestrians, passengers, whether public or private transportation is being used, and cyclists? And when I say cyclists, I mean like bicycle riders.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for them first? Because I have to separate this group.
Okay, so for pedestrians, we notice a lot of our pedestrian fatalities happen at night. And we want to tell pedestrians that they ought to wear light or reflective clothing, especially if they're walking at night in rural areas, because drivers aren't able to see them when they're in the dark. Yes, they have headlights, but it doesn't mean that the clothing you have is reflective. And if you have on dark clothing, that usually absorbs light and it doesn't reflect very well, so persons can't see you. So we want to ask pedestrians to wear reflective or light clothing. We want to ask them, to use the sidewalk whenever possible. And when there isn't one, keep to the near side. Keep to extreme left, to the near side. So we want them to walk in single files if they're in groups, especially children in rural areas. We don't really want them to bundle and go out into the roadway. And, we want to ask persons, we notice a new trend of people taking snapshots in the middle of highways and roads. No pedestrian should be in any roadway, standing, loitering, none at all, especially toll roads or highways. That's a no-no. And we like them to desist from that. Also, we want them to obey traffic signals. So sometimes we have traffic signals phase modifications for the pedestrians where it's their turn to walk. And especially in halfway tree, a lot of people come rushing in. but they continue walking because you see all the persons walking across, even though they recognize that the light is changing. This holds up traffic that endangers the rest of the persons who are, who are not aware that they're not supposed to be crossing, because they see everybody moving, they're not really paying attention. So we want persons to pay attention to the traffic light. Don't walk out into the road when they're not supposed to. Even if they got the clear to go, they have to watch and quickly move across before the light changes, because the traffic is trying to move. And I think in terms of that, I covered the pedestrian, but in terms of passengers, for both private and public vehicles, we're imploring all passengers to wear their seatbelts. And if you're in the back, wear your seatbelt. And it's not said often, but oftentimes we have backseat passengers killing front seat passengers with their belts on. So the front seat passenger is belted, but the back seat passenger isn't. So they go forward, they move forward into the front seat passengers, who then hit into the front console or the dashboard or the steering wheel. So we want to ask all passengers, wear your seatbelts, and if you're carrying children, car seats, booster seats, very important. And for public passengers, we recognize that out of convenience, you let the taxi stop certain places. It shouldn't be a corner. They shouldn't be letting you out in the street. And we see that happening quite often in the corporate area. Because if you're being let out into the street and you're not looking carefully, which oftentimes happen, we have the other cars coming up behind, trying to overtake, not realizing, oh, you're stepping out, and then you're suddenly in a crash. So we're asking public passengers, private passengers, don't exit your vehicle in the middle of the road or into the street. And for pedal cyclists, they have been a very overlooked, road user. They're extremely vulnerable, and we realize that persons don't recognize they have a space in the roadway, and that we want drivers to ensure that, if they're coming up on a pedal cyclist, that they slow down, especially if you're going to turn and that pedal cyclist is going straight, because they're usually on the near side. We want you to slow down and allow the pedal cyclist to go, and then make the turn, and don't turn in on them. And we ask the pedal cyclists to have reflectors. So just like pedestrian, they have to have reflectors. They have to wear light clothing, so motorists can see you at night. That's really critical. And also for pedal cyclists, must be wearing a helmet. It's not a common practice here in Jamaica, but other parts of the world, most regular pedal cyclists would wear a helmet. Most times you see pedal cyclists with helmets here, they're usually part of a cycling group. They're trying to do it at a semi-professional level. But if you are just a regular citizen who cycles, you should also protect yourself in the same manner.
I agree completely.
Yeah,
I got those tips.
I know the cyclists, I think we only see, as you said, probably the professional groups, or probably a child if they're cycling, but I don't really see any big persons with
anybody else don't have on.
And even the bikers, half of them don't really wear helmets. So hopefully we get to the place where we realize that, listen me, it's for your protection, people.
And sometimes these same pedal cyclists, as you refer to them, they're carrying stuff as well, because also them either is might have like a walker on it or some load or whatever, and then the worst not protected, especially with those things on the bicycle. So you can see how that's a recipe for disaster. So that's one of the reasons we had to have this conversation. But since you gave advice for pedestrians, passengers, and cyclists, what advice or what safety tips would you then have for motorists and motorcyclists?
Well, for motorists, on a whole, we want them to wear their seatbelt, but we also want motorists that the responsible driver will ensure that his car is well maintained. So tire care is essential. It's the thing that separates you from the road, your vehicle from the road. And we have a habit of wearing tires down, ball.
Yes. No. Tire looks smooth. Oh, geez.
we need to be looking out for the babies and the tears, because a lot of fatalities are caused by tire blowups. You know, I think about the crash that happened last year on the highway with the minibus, which was a public passenger that was seven persons one time because the tire blew up.
So when you said babies, no, that's the little bumps on the tire.
That's the little bump.
Right. So the little bumps on the tire. Look out for the bumps on the tire. Look out for any rips. You'll see little wiring coming out. You know that the tire is getting to a level where it's not safe. It
needs to be replaced.
Right. Yeah. So we want to look for, once you reach 1.6 milliliter, go to a gas station. Usually they have a tire gauge. Can look for it. Where the tread depth is what you're looking for to be. If it's below 1.6, time to change your tire. We want to let persons know that, you know, when it comes to tire care, it's extremely essential. So when you're buying tires, 5 years old, if it's coming down to 2, 3, don't buy the tire. 5 to 4, you can work with, and buy passenger tire. Don't buy snow tires, and that happens out here on a regular. So you're looking for an A, and you want to make sure your tires for tropical climate. You also want to look at the fact that you need to be checking your brake. Brakes are critical to any person driving safely. Make sure your lights are on, it's working, especially if you're driving at night. It's the worst thing that could happen to you when you're driving at night and your lights stop working and then rain starts falling. Not a good combination. So we want to say that to drivers. Apart from that, ensure that your airbags are working well. There was our airbag recall for a particular type of airbag, Takata, and there was a drive to ensure that most Honda vehicles that were equipped with the airbag, that the Honda dealers out here actually give persons the opportunity to come in and get their airbags changed. But that Takata airbag was not only in Hondas. I wish I had the descriptor right now, but they had a specific here in Nissan as well as Toyotas that actually use Takata airbags. So, you know, that's a critical thing that persons have to actually look into, the type of airbags that are in their vehicles. And motorists, me a beg now, slow down. Speeding, changing lanes, failing to keep the near side. And one of the issues that we have, you know, is that especially on the rural roads, Bustamante Highway, we have Landover in St. Anne and Runaway Bay Main Roads. Some of them are slippery. Some of them have gravel on it. Sometimes we are going to an area where we have supermarkets, businesses, people coming across the road, and we're driving at these excessive speeds because we're not driving for our surrounding environment. So when things happen and they come upon us, we can't even, you know, adjust properly. We can't slow down because we're moving too quickly. And of course, the faster you go, the more force you carry, the more impact you make on your body when you meet in a crash.
Okay. All right. I hope those tips reached out to the motorists, and I want them to ensure that they are following these tips as well. We also wanted to get some advice for the motorcyclists. So what can they do? I know the first thing, wear your helmet. I know that should be one of the key items, but I know your team would have coined more items for them to make the best of their journey.
Well, although helmets are the main part of the protective device, they actually need shin guards, elbow pads. They also need to recognize that a learner's license is not a formal training. And we have a lot of young men practicing risky behavior on roadways, doing wheelies. And unfortunately, on our end, we see the final result, in terms of fatalities. And, if anybody looks on YouTube, you see some crazy behavior. We're asking our young men to stop, because almost 90% of our motorcycling fatalities are young men under the age. Almost all of them are under the age of 40.
Wow.
So, it's quite a sad impact that motorcycle riding is having on our country, and the improper use of our roadways, especially our motorcyclists, when they're splitting the lane. And this means that they're riding in between the vehicles, especially at intersection of stoplights. So, some riders tell me, that's the best thing about riding, that I don't have to be held up in traffic. It's the best thing until somebody opens a door.
Or somebody is actually crossing in front of those vehicles that are passing. Yeah.
And it has happened so often. So lane splitting, not a good idea. But we ask riders to get formal training from a designated driving school, not your friend, not your uncle, but actually a designated instructor who knows how to ride a motorcycle. And these fixing at the sides of roads, that I see some little side garage or motorcyclists coming up, and the mechanics aren't necessarily trained, and they're adjusting a lot on the motorcycle. And then when the person goes out on the roadway, the motorcycle is maneuvering as it should, and they meet in a crash.
Okay, I just wanted to ask this quick question though. All right, because you mentioned that some motorcyclists, they are traveling along on their learners. What is the actual steps for them? So they have their learn. I know for cars, we have our learners for probably a limited time for up to a year, and then we have to renew it, or if we don't get our license as yet. How does it work for the motorcyclists?
Well, the learners now, a couple of years ago, they would have to do a test. But now, anyone who is going for learners will have to do a road code test. And they have to pass the road code test.
And that includes motorcyclists as well?
And that includes motorcyclists. And they cannot ride on their learners in perpetuity, as they did years before, and then renew again. No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, because we ourselves have to ensure that we have the system that doesn't support the, as you said, foolishness, because that is foolishness. If you're just,
it is foolishness.
You're not gonna do no test. You just learn, but you're working for a company, you're working for this delivery company, and you're working with your learners for 3 years. That don't sound right.
Are you hearing us?
So I think that would be, a great initiative.
Well,
so we can.
So it has started. So the persons can't ride once they have to actually pass a road code test to begin with, and they'll have it for the year. Once they have to go, they have to do it again. So nobody wants to do a test again.
Right.
Yeah,
great.
So it makes sense.
So that should cut down some of that. Okay, that's good.
Exactly.
All
so,
right.
Guys, we had to have this discussion because, as I said earlier, I'm not going to call it anything else other than foolishness. It's wholly for foolishness of going from the road. If it is that you don't see it, then you're probably not living in Jamaica. I don't know where you live, but we see it all day, every day.
If you don't see it, you'll hear about it.
Exactly. Because even since week, there was a hit and run of a lady that... this happened on Boulevard.
Right.
And it's just ridiculous. Washington Boulevard. So
the videos are passing around as well, because we see these accidents. But guys, I tell you, you're going to say, listen, me not drive slow, but guess what? Me not drive fast. You still have to be looking out for those persons. You have
to be looking out.
Right. Be safe out there, people.
Yes. It's not only for you, but for the persons around you. Because as we said earlier, people just not paying attention. So it don't necessarily have to be on the driver. It can be a pedestrian that was probably snapping something while they were walking or whatever. All of this happened. So we had to have this discussion. And we know the taxi man, them people on the live talking about, man, driving these days.
We're going to have to do
ridiculous.
a whole segment for the taxi
one whole,
driver.
listen, I feel like we need to have about 3 taxi man come in a studio for explain the life of a taxi man, because we need to understand why they do what they do. So that's a whole discussion by itself, but we know it's sort of, I mean, I don't want to call them a menace, but I see it on the road and it sort of is a menace to society, right?
Would you have any statistics as it relates to the incidents that would involve
taxis?
Those public passenger vehicles?
Collecting those. So we collect fatalities on a daily basis, while the crashes that happen, what we call minor property damage or serious, that is entered in our accident record booklet, and then we get those booklets and we enter it in a database. So we're collecting those, and we're actually looking into the incidences with public passenger vehicles. So hopefully we'll be able to get a report out on 2021, because we're still collecting, in another couple of months.
Okay. All right then. Because once we understand what is happening, we are able to go ahead and ensure that we can resolve those issues, cut down on those issues, and find some solution so we can get the roads to be safe for everyone, or for most persons, to the point where we cut down these incidents because they're unnecessary. Yes,
I think one of the most interesting things is that you can look at other countries, because I think about England, and you have to go through so much to become a black cab driver. There's multiples of tests that you have to take to actually become a taxi driver in England. And it surprises me that for some other countries, when we choose someone to carry some other persons for fear, of course, a fee, but you realize that those passengers have no control and they're literally putting their lives in someone else's hands. And the regulations that ought to go with that, in terms of who that person is mentally, who that person is in their social experience, customer service, and just general driving is not how you can drive a big vehicle or a general license. It's really how well you can maneuver the road, ensuring safety for all road users. And we have a culture where we say, okay, you have a general, that means you can't drive everything, you drive good, man. Warning.
Yeah.
And we know the other realities that wasn't in the case a couple years ago, where people would, pay for the license. It's a reality.
Yeah.
So we as passengers, when the loader man come to it, baby, come in. We need to be looking for a couple of things. Are they a registered driver? Meaning he has a license from the transport authority to carry you. Does he have a PPV plate? Because what many pedestrians don't realize is that if they're not, and they're not insured, if something happens to you, you're on your own.
Yeah.
That PPV buses have a license for a certain amount. If they're over that amount, based on the size of their vehicle, the insurance company counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 up to that amount, whether it could be 20, it could be 25, and whoever don't get count, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
so
a really important one.
Ramifications. We want to get home,
Yeah.
We do want to get home. But if something happens, at what cost?
I actually think that was a perfect point just now, because I wouldn't want to be the one that's left out of that number.
Yeah.
So guys, we have to take personal responsibility, because I also feel like, and I made sure to put passengers in the previous question, because whether it's public or private, people don't know who they're driving with. If you know them drive certain ways, don't put yourself in certain positions.
Yeah.
I've driven with people that I realize that they're on their phone a lot, and I will say it probably once or twice or whatever. Then after there's no change, I make a mental note. If I go into my yard, I find my way there.
Yeah.
So guys, you have to also take a personal responsibility. You can't just be blaming every taximan if you know a certain taximan, because we know them, you know. Especially when you go there every day, you know, whichever route it is, could be a route to work, a route home, you know them. And we know sometimes you really need to reach home, but guys, if you can avoid it, just don't drive with someone of them, because we know it, right? And guys, if it is that you're late for something already, you're done late. An accident is actually going to make you later, or worst case scenario, you'll never get there. Right? I better you're late than you later, or just don't even get there.
Or you're referred to as the late.
Or you're referred to, perfect, as the late, you know?
And crashes have mashed up friendships. As in, we have a friend who took another friend on the road and the crash happened. And, you know, the person has some serious injuries and some serious medical bills. And, you know, the other friend was like, well, I just have that money right now. But the other friend is like, I'm broken up, so I'm suing you.
Exactly. And we don't want that. We don't want that. So, guys, that's something for you to consider. It's something I personally do. So I choose who I travel with. If I don't feel like I can trust that driver, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, whoever it is, I will just either tell you or just don't travel with you, right? That's me. But I have to thank you, Mrs. Hudson-Sinclair, for this conversation that you took time out to explain this, because I've learned a lot. I don't know about all of you, but I saw persons on the live and they were saying, yeah, it's true. And somebody even pointed out that the whole buying of the license is a whole other thing. But we're not going to get into that right now. I feel like we need to probably pick up on this discussion somewhere in the future.
Yeah, we'll do another segment.
Exactly. But Mrs. Hudson-Sinclair, I just wanted to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for educating us. And I hope that we can hear from you again soon. You know, I will definitely be in touch with you. Yeah. But I want to say thank you to you and the Road Safety Unit.
And anybody you'd want to, big up or give a shout out to, because I know you have a great team there. And, they're working hard. And trust me, right now, I mean, it's a lot to do. It's not, the regular, as you say, going out. You have to find new ways to get the message out there.
Yeah, so to catch persons' interest.
Right.
Well, my hardworking team, they know who they are. I have a hardworking accident alert statistician and my data entry staff who really, we went through a bout of COVID and we almost had to lock down our office. But, they stuck to it. People worked from home. Even person who weren't feeling so hot, my administrator. We have a really good team at the unit and we work together and we just push through whatever it is. And, we are part of the Island Traffic Authority. So, I want to pick up my old boss, Mr. Here, who was like, oh, yeah, man, make sure you talk to everybody, make sure them things are the way, and make sure you influence people. I'm like, I'll try my best. But, I really want to say hats off to the team, to Mr. Here and to you, Kimmie, and the team at 93 for actually tapping into us and, trying to get it out there, because road safety is everybody's business.
Definitely.
I love that. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And I'll definitely be in contact. And from the viewers, they said, great refresher, very informative. They appreciate the information. We really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. All right?
All right.
You have a fantastic weekend.
Yes.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All
right. So, guys, that is it for Talk the Ting with Kim. Well, no, I know a usual discussion, but this was a discussion that needed to be had. And like we told you earlier, we have a giveaway courtesy of ST Engineering JA. All right. So, guys, firstly, if you don't now follow ST Engineering, you're not eligible. First and foremost, you have to be following the page.
So before Kim goes into the excitement...
No, my first put it out there.
Yeah, no, man. In the meantime, you can go ahead and go and follow ST Engineering.
Follow ST Engineering.
JA.
Yeah.
So it's one word, STE Engineering.
Yeah, I could spell it out. Let me spell it out.
Really?
ST... ENGINEERING _ little line lower. JA. But if it is that you aren't, you don't remember all of what I just say, we actually did post it on our page. So just go and in the caption, you'll see ST Engineering. Click on them and follow them because you have to do that first to be eligible to win this dash cam. And depending on how this is going, we might have a next one. You never know. All right.
So don't go anywhere, people. We'll be right back after the break. Fantastic Fridays.
We'll be right back.
News Talk 93 FM. Heard everywhere.